regarding Europe, regarding Italy especially, but the whole mainland Euro complex plus the UK, where are they at in terms of what they are allowing their people to eat? What is allowed to be imported and what's not, both plant food and beef meat for pets, animals, and humans?
Great question. In 1999 and 2000, because of the Arpad Pusztai affair, all the majors committed to using non-GMO ingredients. It was this avalanche. The European Commission is pro-GMO. The European Parliament, which has representatives from every nation, generally votes against GMOs. But when they don't have a certain large enough vote, which they don't, the Commission comes in and dictates terms. So the Commission comes in and approves for food everything that's out there. All the stuff that's approved in the United States that may be imported into Europe, they'll generally approve. For planting, they've allowed different countries to have their own veto, and Spain and maybe Romania may be the only ones that plant GMOs. But the thing that's keeping it out of the main ingredients in GMOs is the commitment by the food companies and a labeling regime that requires labeling if there's more than 0.9% of any ingredient that's genetically engineered. But they don't have labeling for animal products where the animals are fed GMOs. So most of the animal feed in Europe is from genetically engineered soy and corn. Now, there are certain retailers that have a lot of power there that say their chickens or their cows or whatever are only going to be fed non-GMO. But you have to find them, find which ones have committed to non-GMO. So if you eat meat in Europe or dairy or eggs, and you don't know, it's oftentimes part of the feed is GMO. And there's very little grown in Europe, but they import a lot from Brazil. In addition, they are requiring the gene-edited GMOs, which are a disaster, to be labeled as well and to go through the same regulatory review as GMOs. That's not the case in the US. We've abdicated and deregulated gene editing. Same for partially deregulated in the UK, just deregulated in India, deregulated in Australia, I think Brazil and Argentina as well. So that's a huge, huge problem, meaning that it's so cheap and easy to gene edit right now, it could convert our food supply. And we won't know because no authority is announcing or requiring labels, or even you can just do it secretly. So we're trying to reverse that. So in Germany, there is a non-GMO label, and that's very strict. So if something has the non-GMO label, it's like the Non-GMO project here, you know that it's met higher criteria than simply avoiding contains GMO requirement. You'll see very few products in Europe say contains GMO. There's not a huge enforcement there, so there may be some contamination, but it won't be as significant, and certainly organic will be way safe.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Up next, and I'm not sure if I hope I get your name right. Is it Twyla?
Twyla, you did well. Can you talk for a moment about how our USDA is infiltrated by Monsanto people? And I'm thinking of Tom Vilsack at the moment.
Tom Vilsack was the governor of Iowa. I used to live in Iowa, and he was the biotech governor of the year. And I remember asking him a tough question at the World Food Prize conference, and then sharing his answer and critiquing it around the world. He knows who I am. And they wouldn't let a USDA person speak at a conference that I'm at, and one person was able to speak at a different day, because they don't want to be embarrassed when I point out what's going on at the USDA. When Jerry Roseman, my first film was called Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals. And I talked about Jerry Roseman, who was his cows wouldn't get pregnant. And then there were also pigs who weren't getting pregnant with eating the GMO corn. And they tested very high in a mycotoxin and all. There was someone from the USDA that was planning to do a study to debunk him. And it was going to be one of those fake studies. And someone who was a kind of an insider told Jerry about it. So it got out, and so they never did it. So there are elements in the USDA that are basically aligned with Monsanto. There's an interesting thing that during 2016, when the labeling law of the Vermont legislature was starting to go public, the biotech industry got the Congress to pass what was called the DARK Act, or Denying Americans the Right to Know. And then they switched the labeling from the FDA to the USDA, because even though the FDA has a mandate to promote GMOs, did not require labeling, did not require testing, the biotech industry believed that the USDA was a closer friend. Sonny Perdue, who was the previous Secretary of Agriculture, he was also Biotech Governor of the Year. So it went from Vilsack to Perdue to Vilsack. And the labeling that came out, the labeling law that came out from the USDA, was probably written by Monsanto. It loopholes virtually almost everything that's genetically engineered, provides easy ways to hide the fact that it's GMO on the label. It's a disaster. So the USDA has not been our friend as far as GMOs go. And Vilsack's concept is, his patent answer was, if I'm a father, I want to support all of my kids, the GMO, the organic, the non-GMO, let them all, have their way, completely not addressing the fact that the GMOs are a bully because they're going to contaminate the others and destroy the ability for the others to continue to have pure product.
But they all have votes. Thank you, Jeffrey, for that. And let's go now to Laura. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Let's see if that worked. Hi, Laura.
Okay. Hey, how's everybody? Oh my God, I'm like so overwhelmed. So a couple quick things. What would be if those of us that even eat organic wanted to get some sort of a test to see if we have glyphosate or any kind of genetically engineered molecules in our blood? Is there like a test that we could get? And number two, if there is glyphosate or any type of genetically engineered molecule in our blood, and we have all these studies that you cited about animals with horrible disfigurements and cancers, like, can we, I see law firms all the time asking people, did this happen to you? Did that happen to you? We're filing a class action suit. So one, can we figure, is there a way to determine what's going on in our own blood? And two, is there a way for us to join together to form some kind of an action against the producers of glyphosate and GMOs, because it's in our blood, in our bodies, and it's a problem?
I'm making notes because there's a lot to talk about here. This will be the last question. Okay. There is a study, a test you can do to find out if there's glyphosate in your urine or in your hair. Health Research Institute does that. They're in Fairfield, Iowa. We have a link on our site at responsibletechnology.org to give you a little discount. HRI, Health Research Institute. They, I think, last time I checked, they had the best science on the testing, which is why we recommend them. You can, if you, like I talked about healing from GMOs and Roundup, that you can take a look at livehealthybewell.com and watch a series of interviews I've done. Dietrich Klinghardt talked about a glyphosate detox. And he said the sickest patients, oftentimes the autistic boys, would have no glyphosate in their urine until he started the detox, and then it would start to trickle out. So it's possible that glyphosate largely goes out through the urine, but some of it gets deposited in the organs and then makes its way to the bone marrow, and can be there on a permanent basis, wreaking havoc. And that's probably why it's linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, because of the bone marrow. So it turns out it wasn't leaving the body through the urine of some of these very sick patients until they started the detox protocol. And I've heard that again since from one other doctor who said that they needed to do a detox in order to get it out the body. But most people have it found in their urine. In fact, people who get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is linked to glyphosate and Roundup, they have a lot of glyphosate in their urine. The people that have the more serious disease have more glyphosate in their urine. So it's typically that way. It's interesting that part of the gene from Roundup Ready soybeans transfers into the DNA of our gut bacteria. So this is a patented gene, so we could theoretically say, Monsanto, you said to farmers when your patented plants get on their property, you'll go and remove it. What about the genes inside my body that are now integrated into our gut bacteria? There was one study that showed this from 2004, and they found, as soon as they found out that this happened, the pro-GMO UK government canceled funding for future research. So we don't know much more about it. We don't know, for example, if the Bt toxin gene that's found in corn transfers to gut bacteria and continues to function. If it does, it might cause our gut flora to produce pesticides. It'd be living pesticide factories. And this pesticide is known to enhance or to elevate an immune response, an allergic response, both to itself, inflammation, etc., and create sensitivity to other formless compounds and foods. It also can drill holes in human cells in high concentration, as shown in laboratories. That's how it kills insects. So in a study of blood taken from Canadian women who were pregnant, 93% of them had Bt toxin in their blood, and 80% in the unborn fetus. Now, why would so many have it in their blood? Because it probably washes out regularly. The corn that they eat every day is mostly without the Bt toxin because it's like high fructose corn syrup, no longer the toxin's no longer there. The people who wrote the study said, well, maybe it's eating the animal products because the animals are fed a lot of Bt toxin in their cotton meal and in their corn. So maybe that caused the Bt toxin to be there on a regular basis because you need a regular amount of Bt toxin in your diet to end up with 93% of the people in the blood. But the other opportunity is maybe their own gut bacteria was producing the Bt toxin from the times that they did eat corn chips, cornmeal, polenta, where the whole corn, the DNA was available and the gene transferred. So that means that it's possible that we may be carrying around Monsanto's genes wreaking havoc. I use the word Monsanto. They've been purchased by Bayer, so Monsanto Bayer. So that's a serious issue. There's no protocols that I know of to test for it or to clear it, but the body's very resilient. Even in rats that were fed GM soy for 8 months and had damage in their livers and testicles and kidneys, or when they switched to non-GM soy for a month, it started to reverse. So eat organic. If you need extra help, watch the series Healing from GMOs and Roundup at livehealthybewell.com. And the last thing I'll say is this, because that's a pretty heavy note to leave on. If you end up eating GMOs accidentally or because you don't control your diet, or you think there may be some issues inside you, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Because worrying is toxic. GMOs and Roundup are toxic. Now you're adding another toxicity. Your upbeat, enthusiastic, loving heart surcharges your physiology, your immune system, your happy chemicals, etc. It's an important part of the regimen of healing from GMOs and Roundup and of living in a toxic world, because you're not going to be able to avoid Roundup in every case. It's in the rain. It's in the air, depending on where you are in the United States. It's sometimes in the drinking water. It's sometimes in low amounts, even in organic food. So do your best. Don't worry about it. Stay upbeat. And if you have a little energy to engage in activism, go to responsibletechnology.org and join the team. We'd love to have you on board.